make sure your partner hears you when you appreciate them. And I've said this before, but I'll say it again. Magic words. Great idea. Good thinking. You're right. These are missing experiences too, and they're so acknowledging. And they also work against that one person psychology and the self-reliant impulse to not let in anything that is not me, that is not mine, that might puncture my safety and make me dependent. So when they're able to really appreciate the contribution of the other, or to actually make use of something that we say, we know we are on the right track. We know we are making progress. You've heard me talk about how important it is to be able to talk about things, and remember how important it is to tell your partner what you want, as Dr. Ruth would say, and also to give them the opportunity, the privilege, the gift, the pleasure of being able to please you in the sexual endeavor. That is so powerful. And also, once again, it punctures the self-reliance. It makes for more connection, more mutuality, more interdependence, which is what we. This next one is really important, and it comes out of Peggy Kleinplatz's work. And I think I told you, I think Peggy is the unquestionably greatest sex therapist in the whole world. What she learned from her successful, self-identified, monogamous, long-term sexual partners is number one on the list of elements that make for magnificent sex is presence. Being really there with your partner wherever you are in the lifespan. And that is the profoundly most missing experience in neglect. So being present with each other is the best thing you can do for a neglect survivor, and what we most need to teach in the sexual endeavor. And it's very challenging, as you will see. So, some of the beginning work that we need to do in sex therapy with neglect and trauma survivors is conversations. And I recommend structured conversations, and I have a whole set of them in the back of this book, which you may or may not choose to use, or you can find them other places or elaborate your own. I certainly started creating them by sort of working from tantric activities and maybe adding my own sort of spin or slant or, a verbalization to them. Anyway, I always start with conversations, because becoming able to talk and tolerate the other person, the other partner, actually coming into that private world of sexuality is hugely significant. As a practice, and one of the first conversations that I start with, and it's in the book, it's called The Ideal Time and Place, and it's a structured conversation which clients can work with either on their own or in the room with you. And in that conversation, there are four categories. There's the emotional self, the body self, the state of the relationship, and the external environment. And in those four categories, they state their preferences. Some people are comfortable to have sex first thing in the morning before they've had a shower or before their partner's had a shower. Some of them not. Some don't want to have sex after they eat because they feel bloated, others not. So, what is the state of the sexual body? What is the state of the relationship? Where are they at emotionally in relation to the other? Are they feeling connected? Are they feeling disconnected? Some people need to be connected first in order to connect sexually. Some people connect sexually first in order to connect emotionally. Some people are into makeup sex. Having sex when they're angry is a way to get back together. Other people couldn't begin to have sex when they're angry and need to resolve the problem before they get, started in a sexual interaction. Some people like the lights off. Some people like the lights on. Some people like music. Some people like quiet. Some people like talking dirty. Some people like silence. What do you like? A lot of them have never talked about this before. So it's a structured dialogue where they actually have specific questions that are, given to them you can give them a handout, they can work with a book, and they have this conversation. Another one in there is the guided body tour, where I show you on my body how I like to be touched. Some people like a soft touch. Some people like a hard touch. Some people like pain. Some people like their hair to be pulled. People are different. So many have never talked about it. So I show you on my body, before we even touch each other, what works for me. These are structured conversations. You're having them fully dressed, sitting up, safe, because I tell them when you're horizontal, in the bed, naked, you're way too vulnerable to hear it. So that's how we begin structured conversations. Once we get to an actual practice, I like to start with the gazing practice because eye contact is very, very connecting. And one of the most telling signatures of neglect that I first identified, and I had to sort of recognize that I feel disrespected when someone doesn't make eye contact with me. I've had to get over that because a lot of trauma neglect survivors, they don't make eye contact. It is way too connecting. It punctures the self-reliance too powerfully. Eye contact is very erotic as well as being connected. As you know, when you're looking across the crowded room and your eyes lock with someone in the bar and you want to run into the restroom with that person, it's very connecting. It's very erotic. So we want to um, we want to practice eye contact. So what I will have them do, and it definitely resonates with that early infant mother resonance, is gazing. And it may be too much for them. They may not be able to handle it, where they're looking at each other and touching. And what I will have them do is put one hand on their heart, one hand on their partner's heart, which means one of them is going to have a hand on their partner's hand. So you've got a flow of energy through the arms, through the eyes, and have them breathe in unison and see if they can tolerate the contact, the presence, because that's how we build up the ability to be present and connect, which is such a key element in their progress around sexual healing. So I may start doing that with them in the room if they don't feel too exposed in front of me. And you may assign that they do that at home, maybe for a minute if they can tolerate it. Now, a word about homework, and you may have already seen this with your clients in other ways, that they don't do it. And partly they don't do it because they're scared, or partly they don't do it because they can't make the time to do it. So we need to take it in stride. that maybe we need to confine the work to in the room because they aren't able or they're too afraid to do it at home. And I've seen some people, if they can do the gazing practice, maybe for 1 minute a day, it's hugely significant. In fact, that I've seen some couples where it really starts them on the road, and others they can't do it. So we take that as given. The 6 principles of sexual health are one of those things that I can't stress enough. And so you know already that consent is the bottom line. It has to be very explicit, overt, consensual. Yes, it's not under duress. It's not vague. It's not under the influence of anything. It's non-negotiable consent. Non-exploitation, which means we don't have a power imbalance that is not consensual, that is not agreed upon. Nobody is taking advantage of the other for their own gratification. Whatever we're doing is by agreement and is equal. Honesty means not only do you know what I'm doing outside the room, outside of the relationship, but also that I'm honest about my turn on, my orgasm, so I'm not deceiving you in the sexual interaction. Can't say enough about honesty. Shared values. What do we feel about polyamory? What do we feel about monogamy? What do we feel about being exposed? What do we feel about privacy? Who we tell what to, who we talk about what we talk about with each other, what our moralities are, our religious, values are. Are we on the same page? Do we have what Gottman calls a shared marital house? That is so important. Protection from sexually transmitted infections. I add protection from unwanted pregnancy. I've seen too many cases where one or the other partner doesn't really feel like they were at choice about having children. They need to have a choice, and they need to be, you know, informed about what is or is not taking place to prevent pregnancy so that we don't create more neglect. Because even if one parent was not really on board with having the child, then we're likely to get at least one ambivalent parent, and the child will suffer. And finally, pleasure, which is not an afterthought, and it's mutual pleasure, is essential. And as trauma therapists, we often forget about pleasure because we're so busy. We're so busy working. You know about my golden rule, Rabbi Hillel. If I'm not for myself, who will be for me? If I'm only for myself, what good am I? And if not now, when? I need to be present to my own experience, feel my own body, my own emotional state, my own connection to others. I need to be tuned in, mindful, present, empathic with my partner's emotional, physical, relational state. I need to be connecting with both. I need to be present in the moment. That's what makes the whole thing work. We need to remember that discrepancy of desire is not is not unusual, is not a pathology. And if we need to do things to bring one partner up to the level that the other partner is comfortable with, we do that, whether it be add stimulation or add masturbation, whatever it is that's going to make the rhythm of sexual interaction work.